Good morning, everyone. Welcome to a new webinar of StandICT. My name is Maria Giuffrida. I'm from StandICT, located in Pisa. So welcome to you all from sunny Italy today. And I am the coordinator of this project. As you see, we have actually two logos of StandICT in our cover, StandICT 2026 and StandICT 2029, because officially we are in between these two editions of the project, as we will explain later. And we're very happy to host at this special moment this webinar that we have named Fellow Journeys from Funding Opportunities to ICT Standards, because our fellows, so the people that receive financial support from StandICT to do their standardization work in ICT committees, they are the center and the heart of the initiative. We want to explain how they're doing and share their experience and the lessons learned from their work. Just before we delve into the topics of the webinar, let me just remind you a few housekeeping notes. This event will be recorded. So the slides and the recording will be available on the StandICT.eu website right after the event in the next few days. And although this is a webinar, we'd like it to be as much interactive as possible. So you have in the Zoom settings available for you the chat and also the Q&A box that you can use whenever you want to ask questions, to comment, to introduce yourself, to write anything, to share links that are useful for the discussion. And we will try to address the questions as soon as possible during the webinar, although we will have dedicated moments for the Q&A in our agenda. Let's have a look then at the agenda for today. We have 90 minutes ahead of us, a little bit packed, but we wanted this event to be especially rich and give also some opportunity for discussion. So we will start with actually an overview of StandICT over the years, because as some of you may know, this is a long-standing and I'd say well-established initiative running from 2018. So it's very, it has a history, let's say. Then we will have some policy priorities and expectations for the new edition, especially of StandICT, which will be given by the European Commission. And I'm not mentioning the speaker name precisely because I'm going to introduce them at the due time during the webinar. Then we'll have a central session on our fellows. We have selected only 3 of them, but there are many more that you can browse and look for in our website and in our reports on the website as well and on the social media. And then we have in this part also, let's say, an overview of the main results that we have achieved so far, because these fellows come from the 2026 edition ending in December. And then we will have some novelties instead, so a longer focus on the new open calls that we have launched already for StandICT, and some, let's say, novelties in terms of mentoring and academy activities. And we will conclude by 12. Just before we start, let me just highlight that you will see speaking here some experts, some partners of the project, but not all of them. But I want to actually thank and acknowledge the support of all the partners of StandICT, which you will not see as speakers today. So namely Australo, TCU, Dublin College University, and OFE, Open Forum Europe. Then the rest you will meet during the webinar. So thank you very much for your attention. I think we can start. And so I will pass the floor to Silvana, CEO of StandICT, for her introduction. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maria. New project coordinator for StandICT 2029, and she makes sure everybody is in shape and on the right track. She does the job admirably. So I'm here to talk about people and results at the center of this journey, because this is what's made StandICT what it is today, people and results. And we must never forget that, because at the end of the day, it's you who builds on producing the impact of StandICT. if you look at the timeline here, what's our journey so far? I just wanted to dip into the fact that, as Maria mentioned, we started back in 2018 as a pilot project. And I think I need to shout out not only to our current project officer, Carlos Lopez Rodriguez, who will be on after me from DG Connect European Commission, and we thank the European Commission for all their support on these editions. I also need to give a personal shout out to three people. That's Thomas Reiber, it's Rigo Venning, W3C, and John Ketchell, because apparently they all sat together many years ago, before 2018, and said, what can we try and do to get more Europeans in specific targeted positions to help pursue the global ICT standardization progress? And so StandICT was really thought of in the call text, and the idea was indeed to push forward experts from Europe and help them financially in their different working groups, technical committees, across horizontal topics around ICT standardization, which are linked to the ICT rolling plan and all of the challenges that are linked there. So this started out, and a bunch of money was put aside to help these experts. And when we launched the first open call back in 2018, I remember sitting in a room saying, well, what if nobody actually applies to these calls? What are we going to do? You know, what is our mitigation plan? And it really was frightening thought. And I have to say that we've become oversubscribed now in our calls, where people are now disappointed, unfortunately, because there's not enough money to go around to help support the number of applications that steadily come in regularly, call after call after call, which gives us obviously a problem as well as an opportunity, because it does show that StandICT has been a success, is successful, and it's the people behind it that make the difference. In the timeline you see, and we'll have the slides after, we went through the different editions of introducing new elements time after time. What remained as a constant, obviously, are the experts, who then we call them fellows. And in fact, we're joined here by three of them, which is super. But every edition, we thought how we could make improvements. This turned into also putting together landscape and gap analysis reports in the second edition of 2023, which wasn't part of the contract at all, but it was something necessary. And so this was then thought of with much more care. Moving forward, the whole capacity building area around training on standardization was becoming much more prominent also. So that had to be introduced as a new addition. Also, the focus around women, the focus on open source, and we go on. And it's nice because our goal is to really strengthen the global reach in leadership and basically push forward, which we have proven with influencing the ICT standardization ecosystem, thanks to the people. If we look at some numbers in the next slide, they're just of the open calls. We talked about the ICT rolling plan, okay, and three of the top targeted topics that we have listed there are cybersecurity, AI, 5G, and beyond 6G. And you can see the numbers of how many fellows applied under those three areas. You also see the aspects on which SDOs are getting prominent applications coming in, but there is these, we picked obviously these for this slide, but the vast range is much larger. And you can see here the actual number of submitted applications and then how many people have received to date. And we're talking around 7.2 million euro have received support towards their ICT standardization efforts. During our review meetings, it was mentioned that there weren't enough women who were applying. So we actually pushed that boat out and also introduced, and we still have now under the 2029 edition, the webinar series of Women in ICT Standards on a global level. So if any of you are online and you're a female and you've not been part of these webinars today, please drop us a note. We want to hear from you, and we'll make sure you get into one of the editions that will be coming up in the future. In terms of the organization types as well, we have a good balanced mix with a significant number of small to medium-sized enterprises coming into the applications. 285 people or fellows are indeed chairs, conveners of working groups and technical committees. And is this data that's coming from 2023 and 2026. So achievements of the 2026 edition, if we go forward, and I think the key word is always about the people. You know, we wanted to blast the voices of our fellows right into the front line here, because at the end of the day, it's these contributions that count, obviously. Each of the fellows then has to also include an impact report. These impact reports are then gathered together, and you can download them all after each of the calls, obviously freely, but just to see exactly what type of impacts their work have done. And we're going to be listening to some of these later on. And then the idea I mentioned before about the technical working groups, TWGs, around specific topics to deliver these gap analysis reports. And what's good is the ongoing relationship with the European Commission and key policymakers and stakeholders who see where there are gaps in the market and what efforts need to be worked upon. We've just released recently, with the support of one of our fellows, a technical working group on trusted chips, semiconductors, and chips landscape, which was incredibly interesting and useful. What's coming up in the future is also a new technical working group on virtual worlds, on efforts that are done there. So StandICT plays this wonderful gluing role between the ICT technologies that are absolutely critical today and in knowing what market needs are out there and what's necessary to then have additional work on in the future. Sometimes you'll see that the calls have priorities. They're always open to all topics, but perhaps there's a specific need for fellows working on quantum standardization. So a call that priorities are asked by our expert evaluators to look specifically at those types of applications that come in. I do want to underline the fact, and you'll hear about this later, that the evaluation process is completely transparent and neutral. The consortium has nothing to do with who gets in and who doesn't. And there's a very rigorous evaluation committee of experts who come in and do their job extremely well. And I'd like to thank every single one of them, because the people are also part of this important process. So next slide, there's also our European Observatory for ICT standardization called YOS, where the repository was put in place back in 2018. What's good about this repository now is that it's very focused and directly linked with metadata standards linked to the technical working group work directly. So it's an efficient process. They're not just listed there ad hoc. It's the work done by these experts through the gap analysis reports that's then complemented into this standards repository. And that will be something worked upon by Maria and the team and the partners in the 2029 edition as well. And then coming up for the last slide, then some achievements of the 2026 edition. We mentioned before that we had a series of webinars around women in ICT standards, and this will be going forward for the next 3 years. We like, in addition to have the Fellows Impact Reports, also put together some success stories. So if you're one of the listeners who have a success story, perhaps you didn't receive money through the open calls, but would like to highlight some essential activity and promising work you've done around ICT standardization, then we'll be happy to publish that for you. And we're also looking at taking forward the second edition. We put together already with other collaborative efforts on projects a webinar on human rights in ICT standardization, and that will be coming forward also in 2026. So we look forward to working on that. If anyone works on human rights and ICT standardization, also drop us a line there. I think with that, I shall stop and look forward to hearing from the rest of the panelists and experts online. Thank you, Maria. Back over to you.
Thank you very much, Silvana, for your presentation. And yes, now we leave the floor to Carlos for his intervention about the DC perspective. Just before I leave the floor to Carlos, I just want to thank the people who are writing in the chat and also anticipate for the ones that are asking questions about the open calls that we will speak about this a little bit later during the webinar, but then we will also have another webinar totally focused on the open calls, and so we will be, more detailed on those aspects in another webinar. So, Carlos, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria, and thank you, Silvana. So, as Silvana was mentioned, I'm the project officer after the retirement of Thomas Reibe. I mean, I'm the project officer already for a couple of years. So I'm working on coordination of ICT standardization at DG Connect. And indeed, I think the introduction given by Maria and Silvana is very powerful to understand the impact that this initiative has had over the past few years. If I look at previous slides, I mean, the number of fellows, I mean, you don't need to go back, but the number of fellows from the first edition to the 2026 almost double the number of applicants, So, of course, there is more and more people that unfortunately cannot receive the funding that they request. So that's a little bit one of the reasons why we are also discussing this prioritization of topics. So if we go to the next slide, we see there some of the challenges that we have identified over the past editions, and I have to thank the consortium from the previous editions because they have always been very innovative, and every edition has novelties, has pilots, and has new ideas to improve the impact of StandICT, which I think is very good. So in the past edition there was a pilot on a mentorship with SMEs. In the previous one also there was the initiation of the academy. So every new edition has new features to improve this initiative. So I think in this edition of 2029, let's say the main innovations are going to be trying to tackle these challenges. So we see, of course, on one side what I mentioned before, the oversubscription and the complexity of the application process. So I mean, even if you are a very good fellow and you are doing a very good job in your technical committee, you have to resubmit your application over and over. So we are trying to streamline a little bit to, let's say, to make sure that the most impactful individuals they can continue with their with their funding. Also, in this coordination, it also comes into play the prioritization, because as Silvana was mentioned, all the topics that have a relationship with ICT standardization, or they are in a way or another reflected in the ICT rolling plan, they are eligible for StandICT, but we often see that sometimes we have indeed policy priorities in certain areas that are not sufficiently covered. We are also trying to innovate on our side. So you might know about initiatives that are more sectorial, and they are more or less trying to mirror the model of StandICT. So, for example, in cybersecurity domain with CyberStand, or in the blockchain domain with C-blocks and BlockStand. So these are similar initiatives of StandICT, but focusing in a topical area. But still, we see the need, for example, now recently with the AI Act, CRA, there's a lot of need for standards or for European experts in this area. So this is a topic that we need to take into account. Of course, the skill developments, we would like to, let's say, to promote the participation not only of stakeholders that have more difficulties or underrepresented stakeholders like SMEs, research and innovation, professionals, but also women or younger professionals, because one of the pillars of the strategy of standardization back in 2022 is also to promote the next generation of standardization experts in Europe. So this is another topic, and of course the sustainability is a third challenge, because we are, from the Commission side, we are satisfied and we are very happy with the progress of the initiative, and we are happy to keep supporting it financially. But now it's a bit on a, if I may, on an ad hoc basis. So we put the calls in Horizon every now and then we try to ensure let's say, continuity. But as Maria said at the beginning, now we have, for example, some overlaps between 2026 and 2029 editions because of the timings of the development of the Horizon programs, right? So I think we are, let's say, in this edition, we would like to discuss also how we can make this sustainability or this continuation of the initiative more sustainable in the long term. So if we go to the next slide, yeah, these are a bit the challenges, and then of course these are the key innovations. So you see that there is, let's say, more budget for the different open calls. So before the open calls had or the fellowships had a duration of 6 months, we have extended that to 9 months. There is a new type of open call we see also to support the organizations of meetings in Europe, because we see often one of the challenges for SMEs, or especially for SMEs, but not only, is the travel cost. If you have a meeting on the other side of the world, is much more difficult to participate. So we also would like to promote a little bit more this support. The evaluation criteria, I saw some questions in the chat about that. So the evaluation criteria was always transparent in StandICT. You can see it in the website or in the page of the application. And yeah, my colleagues, Maria and colleagues, can give a bit more details on that. But just to reassure that the evaluation process is with an external panel of evaluators, that they are very well briefed on the, let's say, the criteria that they have to follow. And this is clear. Then we have the training and mentoring, which is basically a continuation of the pilot programs that were started in 2026 edition. We are discussing the possibility to start with a pilot on quantum. So we see that there is a lot of let's say, researchers in quantum, especially in the Marie Curie program, that are doing very good work and very innovative work. But sometimes it's difficult to bridge the gap between the exceptional work that we are doing in research into the market. And standardization is, among others, is one tool to bring, let's say, research results into the market. So we are trying to create a pilot, especially for quantum, so we can train these Marie Curie fellows in let's say, in their journey into standardization. And of course, the mentorship program is very good, because then you have new applicants, and you put them together with expert fellows, and they can, in a way, mentor let's say, the new people, and then the community can grow stronger. The technical working groups is also innovation. As Silvana mentioned, there are, I think, it's another innovation of StandICT, I might say, because we see that the technical working groups and these groups are every time more impactful. So they do this landscape, but also gap analysis of standardization needs. And we are also trying to connect them more with policy priorities. For example, now with virtual worlds, as Silvana mentioned, there might be more on cybersecurity, also including international partners. So this is also helping us in our work. And then, of course, the latest point is the sustainability strategy, and again, yes, the open source, of course, if you do standardization in the ICT domain, cybersecurity, AI, etc., the open technologies are very important in this in the digital or in software industry. If you take software, I think I don't know the number by heart, but I think 60 or 70% of all software is based on open source software. So the open source has a quite an important role to play in digital standardization, and I think it's important to promote the cooperation between the open source community and the standardization community. I know there are many success stories or many good examples, but I think it's something that we need to bring that relationship or that those links closer to each other. So yeah, I think I'm going to stop here. I don't want to take or to monopolize the discussions, but these are a little bit the main innovations that we foresee for 2029. And of course, we look forward to continue supporting the project and to see what the innovations are let's say put in place to this edition. So thank you very much, Maria, Silvana. Over back to you.
Thank you very much, Carlos, also on our side for your constant support and for your presentation today. I know you have to leave like in 2 minutes or so. So
Yep.
if anyone has any immediate question for Carlos, feel free to write in the Q&A or in the chat. Also later on, and then we will pass it to Carlos if it's something that we cannot answer on our own. Thank you, Carlos, also for providing this overview of the key innovations, because some of these will be further explained by Teresa, as she mentioned in the chat, but also Knut and Gabriele from StandICT team. We will provide more information on this. Silvana, you want to intervene? Please go ahead.
Yes, thanks, Maria. Just for Carlos, before he leaves, I know this could be a question that maybe some of the participants might want to know. And you mentioned, Carlos, before that sometimes there are specific topics that the open calls will the commission stakeholders want to see as priority areas. Is there anything you think you want to say here that's on the top of the list, or that you know already that will be looked on in a specific way for going forward in 2026? You mentioned quantum. Anything else you want to tell the participants that they should be perhaps looking out to do, seeing as the first call is going to close on the 16th of January?
Well, I'm not sure. This is something very dynamic, and of course it will depend on open call to open call possibly. But for instance, now I think quantum is a topic where indeed we might would like to have more experts. And quantum is a extremely comprehensive domain, from quantum computing to quantum networks to quantum safe cryptography, etc., etc. There are many different areas in the quantum domain. Another one is cybersecurity. Cybersecurity now, the standardization work in response to the standardization request of the CRA is advancing well. But we are let's say more or less in the middle of the journey, and in order to complete the work successfully and by the lines requested in the standardization request, we cannot let's say relax. We need to keep pushing and working hard on those goals. Of course, now the experts on the 5G, 6G area might be aware that now in 3GPP they are starting also with the pre-standardization work and the let's say discussing the first ideas for 6G. So this is some topics that from our side we have in our radar, but of course this can change if we see that, for example, there is a need to accelerate the work on data standardization or on other areas. That's a little bit the flexibility that we want to have with this prioritization of topics. I hope that replies to your question. And then, of course, prioritization doesn't mean that the other topics are not allowed, or applications in other topics are not allowed, but we would like to, I think the main and following with the history of StandICT, the goal should be to have every time more and more impact. So this will help to have for an increased impact of the project in support of the EU policy priorities.
Perfect, Carlos. Thank you so much. That was very useful. Back to you, Maria.
Thank you. And so now we move on to the fellows that we have invited. Thank you for being with us, Jan, Ruth, and Richard. I will leave to each of you to introduce yourself properly during your presentation. For the people who are connected, and thank you also to many fellows that I recognized in the chat who are writing their experience as a comment. The aim of this session is to hear from 3 different experts, the main learnings and the main impact also that they have been able to achieve, also thanks to the StandICT support, and also to spark a little bit of discussion with you. So if you have questions for them, you can use this session of 30 minutes that we have to write in the chat, and we'll pick up the questions right after their short introduction and presentation. So we'll follow the order that we have in this slide, and we will start with Jan. Welcome, Jan. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Maria. Hi from cloudy Stockholm. I just have to say, you're not going to make money from the funding, but we have a passion for the work we do that it doesn't matter. As long as we get the funding and we can do what we have passion for, I think we contribute to the EU and the funding that we get. I've been a fellow for 4 years. So I've gone through some of the pains that you're maybe going through, that trying to apply. And I hope at the end we can have after all 3 presentations, we can talk a little bit about the failures as well. A little bit about myself. I am a member of the Swedish Institute for Standards. I'm also chair for our mirror group for Working Group 5, SC27. So there are 2 standards that I work with. One is an ISO SC27, Working Group 5, working with the digital receipt that I'm going to talk briefly soon, and also StandICT.eu working with the digital wallet. It's another area that I also work. I also am a liaison officer between SAN and ETSI for some of the work coming from this Working Group 20. I've been active in been in conferences presenting. I've co-authored research papers, and thanks to the funding, I'm also been able to get an award for one of the research papers that I've co-authored with. On a professional side, I work with GDPR and ISO 27001 with privacy and security assessment. So that's my day job. When it comes to the work that I do in this fellow, I am a lead editor for 2 tracks of standards, which one thing is key is with this fellowship is you get this tenacious. To be an editor, you need to really be tenacious in the work that you to do and reaching the consensus. But I've really enjoyed the expert dialogue that you managed to have when you joined some of these expert groups. The first track I thought of touching on is this consent receipt information structure. This is the easiest way to think of it is you go to a store, you buy groceries, you get a receipt. This is a digital receipt on how your data is being used. And it could be for data sharing, it could be usage of AI, or any form where you are sharing information. What are the conditions of sharing that information? And the structure and the requirements we have set help what privacy policies fail, which is make it structured, machine readable. I think we have suffered too much from death by cookies. We just ignore them or accept all the conditions. But I believe in this structured way. This standard was started from Kantara, and then we brought it into this ISO standard. And a little bit on the history. Originally, I worked with several Horizon 2020 and then 2025 NGN projects. And I worked in this area prior to joining StandICT. So already 2019, I looked into how could I continue my work, because NGN then ends. And that allowed me to continue. And then I was invited, why don't you become a co-editor to this 27560? And I said, sure. Before I knew it, I was a lead editor. I don't know how it happened, but that happened. So I'm very proud of, in 2023, we did publish it. And another fate, and many of you from ISO or working with standards, is I managed to make it free. It's almost impossible to make any of your standards. So you can actually download this. And it takes that tenacious aspect to get that to come through. One aspect that receipt is one aspect, but I've done some, if we remember back to Cambridge Analytica, where your data was being used in ways that we didn't consent to. There needs to be a way of better doing this control. So I actually branched and started looking at another area. So how can we use this receipt? So if we go to the next slide, I'll go into the world of EU DI wallet. If you're familiar, there's the EIDAS 2, where we're trying to make all the digital information like a passport and ID cards able to carry on your phone as a wallet. We see already today many countries have their local form of a wallet, but this is a national initiative. And you can just see from the diagram where on the left side you have the ones issuing information like a passport, ID, or even education loaded into your wallet. And then on the right side, you're seeing this relied party to get this information. And then in the center, you basically see this wallet, this app that's on your phone, which is trusted execution environment in the phone. And what I did is I thought, okay, we need to make this clear how your information is being used. So if we click the next point, you'll see that that I started another standard in SEN and focusing on what are the security controls for accessing that information. Because in the end, when you're going to grant something, you need to know that you're not going to be abused in a fraud case, people trying to get access to that information. I thought it was fundamental to get that in place. And I got 5 countries to support it, and I started this new standard. And if you click one more time, the fundamental part is when you go through all these controls, they'll collect information that's coming from the issuer and the relying party to make a decision when to grant. That warning is a symbol of all the instructions and the embedded policies that are being run to identify there is a problem. And then here you're able to grant or not grant. And if there's a abuse, you can contact. Who do you inform? This is one part. And if you click again, you'll see that you're going to go to the log. So even if the fraud occurred or something you went bypassed, the transaction log becomes the evidence if some abuses occurs, and you can react into how do we then follow up on these issuers or relying parties that are abusing and accessing your information. I don't want to be naive about the usage of the EUDI wallet, that a user will know when to make a decision. And that's why I feel this standard that I work with is, I typically call it the access control standard, will be able to help us in controlling that information. So these two were the kind of a flavor of the tracks that I've funded. And hopefully we can talk a little bit about the failures and how do we get the funding. But again, it's not always about the money. It's about being able to continue that standards effort. And I appreciate StandICT for having me as a fellow. I'd like to pass on to the next speaker. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jan, and congratulations for your work, your award that my colleague has also put a link in the chat to a story we wrote about it, and also for making the standard freely accessible, which is not easy at all. So I will pass now the floor to Ruth. Can you?
Thank you.
Perfect, Ruth. Thank you.
I'm delighted to say that Jan has said a lot of things on the generic side that I wanted to say too, which is really good because it shows that we're in agreement. First, of course, that without StandICT, we couldn't move forward. And then second, that we do this for the love of the job. We don't do this because of the money. The money is just kind of a background to help us get there. So my name is Ruth Lennon, and I actually come from academia mostly. Academia pays for my day-to-day living expenses, let's say, not for the work that I do with standardization. So I do need StandICT to step in. But my work is with industry partners. I educate them rather than, I suppose, what you count as your traditional students. So if we move on to the next slide. So I think this is important because I live in the Northwest, which is about as rural as you can get. There are no trains and there are very few buses, and we're nowhere near an urban hub. So StandICT has helped me to participate in standards. Being in academia, this is great because my students, those industry folk who are trying to retrain, who are trying to learn about a new area, get exposure to things that they would not otherwise have. I help industry to change their processes because of the work that I do with standardization. And of course, for the standards that are not in existence, that I would really like to see, if it's not there, well, write the standard. It's as simple as that. Gather your team and write the standard, which is exactly what Jan has done himself. So this is what we do. This is why we're here. And this is what StandICT supports. But we can only do this as part of a group. There is a network of professionals out there. And I'd have to call out the ISO, IC, GTC1, SC38, and cloud distributed platforms, because those guys are great. And there's no going in and wondering, well, can I do it? You know, what if they see they've been in industry for X length of time and maybe I'm not there. The groups that I've had the privilege to work with have been fantastic, and they're very welcoming. And I'm going to do this because I always have to do this. I'm going to encourage more women to join standards because we don't have enough of them. And we all bring a different perspective, no matter who we are or where we are. So please come and join. And especially if you'd like to get involved in observability, I'd love to have you on my team. Okay, so these industry experts, this network that we're building up is really good because we get these higher level discussions. And in my role as national chair of my national mirror committee, I can get to help my local area, those industry in my local area, to move forward. I'm also lucky enough to be convener of a new working group, which I want to talk about in a bit, in data interoperability and portability. But that's on the kind of more cloud side of the house that we're looking at. But I'm also involved in software. I'm one of those unusual people. So if we move on to the next slide. My specific skill area is in DevOps, and DevOps can mean anything, something different to every person that you speak to. So I kind of do a bit of cloud. Well, there's also a bit of security in it. I'm convener of WG6, which mostly focuses on data spaces, but I really want to talk about observability, and that's the project that StandICT support. But it's all back into DevOps again, and we're going around in circles here. There are multiple standardization groups that work in this space. The first one being ISO, I've already mentioned it, the IEEE under the S2ESC, which is the Software and Systems Engineering Standards Committee, so kind of on the software side of the house, and Sense and Elec on the data spaces, which again, I'm going to talk about because data spaces is so new. It's something quite different and definitely needs a bit more time and space on it. But in each of these groups that we're looking at, there are multiple standards that I get the opportunity to be involved in. So a data space is supporting services to build trustworthiness, enable sharing of data through an agreed set of policies, semantic models, protocols, and processes. And yes, I did have to read that to make sure I didn't trip up on the wording on it. But that doesn't matter. What matters is that it's now a way of sharing greater amounts of data in a safe way, and most importantly, an agreed way. So some of the standards that I have been working on recently is the 2151 data space concepts and characteristics. So some standards are the fundamentals. And as Jan has pointed out, it's great when you get to put a standard out there for free, because more people can access it and we can improve quality overall. But again, as he's already said, that's kind of hard to do because, you know, we have to fund these things. They have to come from somewhere. 25850 is somewhat different because it looks at use cases for data spaces. And that's nice because it helps you understand, where do we apply these technologies? So having the standards is great, but if you don't know that this technology, technique, process, whatever standard you're looking at applies in your area, how do you know that? So some standards are on just plain use cases, and they're essential. I think that's one of the better ones. And I think all of those use cases standards should be free. Not only should they be free, they should include teaching materials so that we can train the next generation of employees to understand why we have them. We also have 19941 on interoperability and portability. Well, this is how the cloud supports all of these technologies. It doesn't matter whether it's quantum or if it's data spaces. There are basic lower levels of the model which you need to be aware of and to support that. And it's great when you start to see EU regulations referencing the standards that you're working with. And I'm going to mention two more, again, leading back to previous presentations. The first one is Data Space Trust Framework. So we talk about cybersecurity. Name one space in computing that doesn't have security or needs security. So when you're applying for your StandICT funding, just remember how it applies and where you're contributing, and this might be relevant. Now, I'm also going to go with the last one being observability. So if we move on to the next slide. Observability can come in different spaces. So for example, observability in software and systems. In that space, I'm working with the IEEE, but when observability in cloud and distributed computing, we're working with the ISO. So these organizations are working together, although they're working on different spaces. We're working together in that we're focusing on our different aspects and we're not disagreeing. There's always that contribution. SENS and StandICT do the same in the data spaces area. So if we move on to the next slide. So how do we do this? You know, if I wanted to create a standard in observability, how did I do it? Well, first of all, I have to determine if there is a need for a standard. It seems obvious, but yet you have to do it. Just because you want it doesn't mean there's a need for it. So find out nationally if there's a need. And then you work with your group. In my case, it was the SC38 within ISO. And they established a core group of people to start working on this. They evaluated, is there a need for this topic? So you come up with a preliminary work item or a PWI. And if that work item starts to flesh out, then you create your Form 4 and away you go. You've got a standard in the making. You're starting to pull everything together. But it's the team, it's the network. And without StandICT funding, we couldn't get there. And that's all for me.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ruth, for sharing your experience and especially for the suggestion about, in my case, I appreciated the suggestion about the use cases, which I think it's very interesting suggestion that they should be accessible and free and also used as a material to train new people. Now, before we go to the discussion part, let's move to Richard. So for Richard, I will stop sharing my screen because you will self-manage your presentation.
Okay.
Welcome, Richard. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If you can just confirm, can you see it in full screen mode?
It's still coming. Okay, we see it not in presentation mode yet.
Okay, let me just swap. Is that better?
Now we see it perfectly.
Okay,
Thank you.
it's a bit slow. All right, thank you very much. So my name's Richard Pitwan. My background is mostly in optical interconnect, fiber optics. I'm the chair of IEC TC86 SC86B, and that's a subcommittee for optical connectors. I'm also the convener and the founding convener of a new working group on quantum optical interconnect, and that's part of what I'm going to be talking about today. I'm also a liaison between TC86 and the newly formed IEC ISO JTC3 on quantum technologies, which I'll also mention. A lot of the messages have been shared by Ruth and Jan about the importance of standardization, so I don't need to talk about them. I'll about the importance. I want to talk about quantum technologies. Carlos mentioned he touched on how critical quantum technologies are, and this is an emerging technology and one that's strategically important, globally strategically important. It's also very important for Europe to wield influence in this area. Here I have an example of a hyperscale data center. A hyperscale data center is a data center which is very big, comprising maybe 500,000 servers. What we're seeing, and it's also the incubator for artificial intelligence, which is also very strategically important. What we're seeing now is different pillars of quantum emerging in here, for especially quantum computing, which allows you to do very specific, very certain types of complex computing, and quantum communication, especially cryptography and quantum key distribution. And this allows you to encrypt data, making it unhackable. Now, these are two strategically very, very important things: cybersecurity and the ability to carry out very advanced computation. It's a good example. And hyperscale data centers are a microcosm for all these advanced technologies. Now, up to about 2023, the quantum landscape was quite scattered. I show you here an example of different groups dealing with different aspects of quantum technologies, but it was quite disparate. Most of it was also focused on software and QKD. But something very relevant happened at the beginning of last year. It was the formation of ISO, actually it was IEC ISO Joint Technical Committee 3 on quantum technologies. And just to tell you how important and relevant this is, there's only one other IEC ISO Joint Technical Committee, and that's on information technologies, and that's the only other one that exists in the last 30 years. The scope of this is a very holistic group. The scope of this addresses all aspects of quantum technologies, including computing, simulation, metrology, quantum sources, detectors. So it's an extremely strategically important Joint Technical Committee. But one thing is it excludes certain aspects specifically. And one of the things it excludes, you might see there's fiber optics, IEC TC86. Not because fiber optics is not relevant to quantum, it's very, very strategic to quantum, but more about the availability of the huge expert base of fiber optics. TC86, which is mentioned there, this is what I've been involved in for almost 17 years. It is one of the largest technical committees in the world. It deals with, there are three subcommittees. There's Subcommittee A, which is fibers and cables, Subcommittee B and 86B, and this is the one that I've chaired for the last 7 years, which deals with optical connectors and passive components. And Subcommittee C, which deals with active devices, including integrated photonics, for example, photonic integrated circuits, which are very critical technology. Now, one aspect which is relevant to both TC86 and JTC3 is the quantum interconnect. And in particular, the ability to transfer single photons or entangled photons across distances. Now, over the many years, we discussed with the quantum community what standards are the most useful for them. Quantum grade interconnect always came up as the most important standard. And by quantum grade interconnect, I mean if you want to send a single photon or entangled photon without disrupting its very, very delicate quantum properties, you have to send it through cables, you have to send it through connectors, you have to send it through routing elements, and all of these can disrupt the special quantum properties of this and making it useless. So this ecosystem, there's a need here, for example, for ultra low loss optical connectors that have less chance of disrupting the single photon. Or you have arrayed waveguide gratings. This is a special thing that allows you to route things in terms of its wavelength. You have things like very low loss fibers. For example, in the UK, the great progress has been made on holocore fibers, which are lower loss than even the lowest loss fibers today. And you have the endpoints, the equipment that allows you to encrypt and decrypt the information. Another important thing is photonic integrated circuits. And photonic integrated circuits, in a nutshell, these are integrated circuits in which you have the ability to guide light and the ability to change the speed of light. And if you combine these two abilities, changing the phase of light and guiding light, you can do all sorts of things. You can turn light on and off. You can split it by wavelength, by power. You can do almost anything. And you have all these materials, platforms for photonic integrated circuits. Silicon is the most common, but for quantum, silicon nitride is the most important. And in order to change the phase of light with very, very low loss, you're looking at materials such as lithium niobate, barium titanate, which have very high electro-optic coefficients, so you can change the speed of light without disrupting the quantum properties of the light. And today, the most common application is optical transceivers, but you have many other applications: wearable diagnostics, sensors, LiDAR, quantum technologies, and even disk drives today use photonic integrated circuits. But in order to address this gap, a few years ago, I started a technical report in the IC, which laid out the foundation for the strategic need for optical fiber interconnect in quantum technologies. And this laid the foundation for a new working group. And I formally proposed the new working group last year. And this is working group 11, quantum optical interconnect. And this essentially fills in the gap. That's exactly fills in the gap that JTC3 has. So it's anything to do with fiber optics and integrated optics in quantum technology. And that is strategically extremely relevant because quantum fiber optics is crucial to many, many aspects of quantum technologies. And you'll see here the scope, which is defined as to prepare standards for quantum technology applications, including all the pillars: networks, communication, computation, metrology, sensing, but everywhere which involves fiber optics there. And this is where the working group sits within the technical committee hierarchy. It sits above the subcommittees because it addresses all aspects of the subcommittees. It addresses fibers and cables, connectors, and photonic integrated circuits. So it's a very powerful working group sitting at the high level. And just to give you an example of the roadmap, you have quantum-grade optical connectors, quantum-grade fibers, high isolation passive optical routers, so low loss ways of rerouting photons based on their wavelength. And you have other more practical things such as high isolation fibers, so you don't leak in light from the environment, cubic coupling, and many other things. So this is and there are many more aspects of this, and this underpins the quantum interconnect standardization roadmap. So last year we held our first inaugural meeting virtually on the 24th of April, and our first face-to-face meeting at the IC general meetings in September. And the membership of this group, of this work group, has grown extremely fast because of how strategically relevant it is. One example of a first standard that we put in was a standard for what are called quantum-grade optical connectors. It may not sound so interesting, but strategically it's extremely, extremely critical. It defines benchmarks for optical connectors that will allow you to send very delicate photons, quantum qubits along optical networks. And just to conclude, quantum technologies they're a mainstream technology. We have this formation of this new JTC3, which is strategically very critical. It's important that Europe becomes involved in this area because we have a huge amount of the research, especially in the UK and other parts of Europe. There's a huge amount of research and know-how for quantum technologies. So it's important that we also have strong strategic influence on the standardization of this, especially as it's emerging. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Richard, and especially for your latest focus on creating this new working group, precisely addressing the gap that you found. It's a signal of how really dynamic is this field. Now we have 5 minutes left in this session, and I'd like to use it to just have a brief discussion with you to address actually some of the points that also came up into the chat. Because we've listened to your successes and your achievements, but we know all of you basically are recipients of multiple fellowships, but at the same time you failed sometimes, so you learned how to maybe improve your application or your approach to this a competitive, let's say, process. That's the open calls. And so the question I want to ask you is, what are the main learning points and the things that you would recommend or suggest to people that want to enter standardization, and maybe that they also want to apply to StandICT to receive support for their work? Maybe we can follow the same order that we have had so far. So I'm gonna ask Jan first, and then without me having to pass the floor, you can directly jump in, Ruth
Right.
and Richard.
So very briefly, I understand failure is feels like something went wrong, but read what the failure or the reason that they were not successful. And for those that are trying to submit new, never done before, make sure, for example, basic stuff. The day rate is correct. You can't go over a certain level. Travel budget, also motivated clearly. I know sometimes you don't know exactly when you'll travel, how much it is, but be on the conservative side. And also measurable accomplishments is something that when they're reviewing, they want to see that they can see the results of the work you do. And those are my 3 basic tips. I don't know if Ruth, you want to add, or you have some other additional tips?
So there was a question in the Q&A, and I kind of like to answer it now because this is where it fits best, which was about the hours. And I know for some academics, maybe they have a role that is in standardization, or that you can use that to help fund their role. And well done to them if that's the case. But in my case, I don't. So for me, the number of hours has to be incredibly low. And Jan and I have spoken about this before, which is that I might put in an application and say, I only want 3 hours, or I only want 5 hours. And maybe somebody else is putting in 100 or 150 hours. But that's what works for me because I can't deal with the tax and it's not going through my university. So as long as you explain what's going on, that's definitely a very big thing. The other thing that I found made a difference was tying very tightly the activities with the impact on your national industry. You know, those outcomes can't be overstated. You need to say the why this is going to work. And when you're writing your final report, to match it back up again, I think that's also quite done. And I will put my hand up and say I haven't been brilliant at that. Again, there was something in the chat about somebody having 80% or a high value, but also as per the previous marking scheme or the previous slides, you could see that, well, actually there were 1,000 applicants or 1,000 plus. So it's going to be very hard to pick the people. So we're really talking about small changes. You can do excellent, but still not get funded. So, you know, paying attention to those small details can make the difference. That would be it for me. Richard, have you different opinions on this?
Oh, I completely agree. I just wanted to give the more general question about how to get involved with, you know, where you can get a lot of help and get involved with the standardization. It depends on your national committee. But in the case of, I think in the case of the BSI, the British Standards Institute, they're very helpful. You have it's easy to join the mirror committee of the group you want to join. You have experts. You have this nice casual relationship, a very friendly relationship, and they promote you very quickly to the international group you're in. For example, in my case, the IEC group. And national committees can be very helpful. UK, for example, they provide part funding. Even it's maybe a quarter of the amount, but much more than other national committees. So it's nice that they funded it all. But they really want to encourage this getting involved. And you wield strategic influence by being part of these standardization groups of you know, reviewing, creating your own standards. But you wield great strategic influence by being in these groups. In terms of preparing the proposal, yes, as Jan and Ruth said, it's I think you just have to go answer the first of those, answer the questions that there are, not that you want to answer. Answer the questions as they are, and also when you get feedback, and there'll probably be many failures, as in my case, and I think others' cases. Listen very carefully to the feedback. So that's all I can advise.
If I can compliment to that feedback, sometimes we get frustrated. What did they mean with this? Don't take it personal when sometimes you get a very odd, cryptic feedback that's too short to even interpret. Don't get discouraged. Look at the other ones and then just try to do an enhancement. But because you can't talk to the evaluator. Anyway, my little last thing.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jan, Ruth, and Richard, for these initial, thoughts and pieces of advice. We've had also some comments in the chat if you want to further elaborate. But actually, I invite you all to apply to become mentors of the program that we are establishing in this edition. And Gabriele will explain a little bit better, but it's a way to actually transfer your experience to new applicants as well. And now that we are talking about the open calls, I think we can continue with our presentation. So I will share the screen again. Yes. Okay. I think you should see my screen, right? You should see my screen. Okay. So I pass the floor now to Teresa, my colleague from StandICT, who is the manager of the open call procedures. Thank you, Teresa. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Maria. Hi, good morning, everyone, and it's a pleasure to start, let's say, this new edition and also to explain now the new rules that we have set up for this batch of open calls. So as Maria was saying, yes, I'm the manager for the open calls of StandICT. In the initial slide, I actually added my email address. I think this is actually very important information for you all to have in case you have any questions or doubts on how to submit the application or how to fill in the application form. So please save my email address and feel free to send me any emails at any time if you have questions on the procedure. Also because, let's say, we have made some adjustments and some changes, not major ones, but important ones. Also, let's say, according to the experiences of the past StandICT editions. And so, let's say, the open calls for the 2029 editions have been mainly divided into three different typology of contributions. We have, let's say, the classic typology of contributions that we have always had in our past editions, which are the long-term contributions and the short-term contributions. And we have made some adjustments also in this case because the long-term contributions have now a longer duration, and so you can apply for up to 9 months duration, and you can request 10,000 euros for the maximum, let's say, funding range. On the other side, we have short-term contributions that are up to 3 months duration for a maximum funding amount of 5,000 euros. As it was, let's say, also in the past editions, you can, let's say, apply for multiple open calls in long-term and short-term contributions typologies. So this basically means that if you get funded once, you can resubmit another application in another funding batch. Of course, it is very important, as we have already stressed actually in 2026, to underline the main differences between the two different applications that you are submitting. And you can receive up to 50K over the whole, let's say, 2029 edition for the short-term and the long-term contributions. So this means that potentially you can win up to 5 different long-term contributions. On the other side, we have also, let's say, decided to set up a new typology of contribution, a new type, let's say, of contribution, which is the organization of the standardization meetings. So this is a brand new, let's say, type of contribution, and it's a pilot. So this means that you still cannot see it on the application form and in Open Call 1 because we are still trying to understand when it will be launched. We are working on this. And basically, this new typology of contribution aims at supporting the organization of strategic standardization meetings around Europe. which are of course endorsed by an international SDO or a global forum. And here eligible costs will probably also include, let's say, events organization management, so mainly, let's say, equipment rental, catering, communication materials, and so on. This type of contribution is expected to last for 6 months maximum. Of course, it will also depend on the scale and the timing of the meeting, and you can receive up to 1,500 and 1,000 euros. This type of contribution, of course, it is a bit different from, let's say, the classic ones, so from long-term and short-term ones. And basically, here you can only be awarded once. And so you cannot, let's say, apply for a continuation of your work under this new typology of contribution. But we will, of course, then explain this later on also during the upcoming trainings that we are planning to organize, and also once we will, of course, launch these standardization meetings type of contributions. Here you can see, let's say, more or less the tentative timeline of the open calls for what concerns the long-term and the short-term type of contributions. Of course, as you know, now we have Open Call 1 launched and open for submissions, and it will close after Christmas on the 16th of January. And the results will be probably be available around mid-February, because the evaluation process will still last around 30 days, as it was in the previous editions. Then we have somehow also planned the other open calls, the other batches. We will have the second one in February, and then in June and in October for what concerns 2026, while on 2027 we are planning to have 2 of them, one in February and one probably in June. So let's say the open calls in general will close, let's say, around August, September 2027. An important thing that I was also stressing earlier in the chat is that this time we have less open calls, so we have 6 open calls and not 9 as it was in 2026, but we also have a higher budget available for all of them, and this will hopefully, let's say, help us in decreasing a bit the very, very high level that we have reached, let's say, with the previous editions, as we will have more budget available for funding the applicants. We have a total of 4.2 million euros available, and we are planning to use, let's say, at least 4 million for the short-term and long-term contributions. So to be divided, of course, into 6 different batches. So hopefully this will help us. Then next slide, please, Maria. So as I was saying, yes, we have the first open call now open. You can find it on our website. And we have also updated and published the guidelines for the applicants to the fellowships. And these are available also on Zenodo. The guidelines, let's say, they are mainly a document explaining how to submit the application. There are also, of course, the instructions for logging in the grants platform and submitting the application there. But you can also find other informations, such as the timeline of the fellowship, which are the eligible costs. And also you will find, let's say, a few notes on the criteria for the evaluation, which we are currently, let's say, setting up internally, and that will also be updated a bit, let's say, so that we will be able to focus more on the most relevant aspects of these applications. So mainly, let's say, the criterion will focus on the excellence, on the impact, on the implementation, and the inclusion and knowledge of the applications submitted. So all, let's say, these informations are also available in these guidelines. But let's say we will further also discuss this, and we will also clarify, maybe explain a bit better also to the applicants, which will be the main criteria for the evaluation during our training sessions that we are planning to organize for each open call this time, because it turned out that it's extremely important that all the applicants, both the new ones, but also the let's say the old ones, the ones that have already applied in previous editions have a clear idea of how you must submit the applications and what you must include, what you should focus on, and so on. And for this reason, we are planning to have training sessions, more or less, I would say, a couple of weeks before the deadline of each open call, which I will manage, of course, where we will basically, let's say, explain how to submit the applications, but also, let's say, these training sessions are aiming at listening to you and also to what are the main issues you are encountering in submitting the applications. And for this reason, we have decided, let's say, to set up these Q&A sessions during these trainings that will hopefully support you in the submission process. And so this is just a save the date for the first one that will be on the 7th of January at 11. I don't know if we will keep it 30 minutes or if we will have 1 hour. We still have to decide this. But if you want to already save the date, we will have, let's say, this Q&A right after Christmas. One last note on the evaluators open call, because as you might have seen, we have also opened and launched the evaluators open call, which is now ongoing and is still open for submissions. We are currently revising the first applications that we have received, and soon we will, of course, also share the contracts with the evaluators, and we will start the enrollment process. During the enrollment process, of course, we will also showcase and explain to the evaluators the new guidelines, the new evaluation guidelines that we have prepared, and we will then, of course, do the onboarding of them before the 16th of January, so before the first open call will close. A very important note that I want to make, and then I will, let's say, close my part, is that if you are selected as an evaluator and you choose to be an evaluator for StandICT 2029, you cannot apply to any of the funding batches of the open call. So this means that basically you have to make a choice, okay? So you can for sure apply to both at the moment, but so you can apply to open call 1 and also to the evaluators open call. But if you are selected as an evaluator, and so if you are approved, you need to choose whether you want to be an evaluator or you want to be a potential fellow for this edition. So this is very important because the two, let's say these two things cannot be in parallel, cannot go in parallel. So we cannot have evaluators that also apply to the open calls, because the evaluators must be external entities, and also, and for this reason, they cannot be considered eligible for the regular open calls. Another point is that if you are not sure, let's say, which one to choose, if you're not sure if you want to be an evaluator or if you want to be a fellow, you can also, let's say, write to us, and we can also discuss this. We can, let's say, analyze your situation and see whether you are more feasible for being an evaluator or for being a fellow. So this is also something that we can discuss together if it's needed. So yes, I hope everything I said was quite clear. Of course, you have my email address, and you also have these save the date on the 7th of January, where we will, of course, delve deeper all the aspects of the open calls. But this was just, let's say, a first initial overview for you all to understand how the funding batches will work in this 2029 edition. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Teresa. Thank you also for all the comments that we got. We tried to address some already in the chat, but for others, maybe we will follow up. We can save these and discuss this in the 7th of January webinar. And now we've come to the final presentation of this webinar, highlighting another novelty, let's say, of this edition, where we also want to highlight the importance of training new people that are not necessarily already expert of standardization, but they are expert of the industry or the topic that the calls are about. And so for this part, I leave the floor to our partners, Knut Blind and Gabriele Casalini. I think Knut will go first to explain what we've done already with the Academy and what are the plans, and also with the mentorship program. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria, for giving me the floor. Welcome. Also from my side, I will really keep it short because I think Gabriele has some interesting illustrative example about the mentorship program and progress. Next slide, please. Yeah, in the past, I think we had these training modules and which were then accompanied then by webinars, which we will see on the other side. In total, we kind of have seen that more than 10,000 downloads have been achieved so far. Therefore, nice distribution. And also what we did, we linked also starter kits of the European and international standards organizations, especially for newcomers on the side of the Academy. Next slide, please. And then we had, I think, quite successful webinar, a series, especially on the geopolitics, with the focus on specific countries. And then also open source was already mentioned. Then there was one on the Standard Essential Patent Regulation, which is probably coming back. We had the European Standardization Panel, the first edition. In the chat, I shared the link to the second one, which has been just recently launched by DG RTT under the Knowledge Valorization Initiative. We had the women topic and some others. Overall, more than 1,000 participants, which was quite great, and we are going to continue this success story. Next slide, please. That means we'll update the content here because there is some dynamics. We'll also expand topics, for example, from technology to digital sovereignty. Human rights was already mentioned. There will be kind of an event, but there will also some material we are going to share in our Academy page. That's the one aspect. And next slide, please. And then also we continue the webinar series, also maybe addressing, we are probably kind of repeating what, oops, something happened to the slides. Next slide, please. I don't know. Yeah. Maybe also other regions like Africa. And then there are new developments in the interface between standardization and open source. As I said, the standardization panel. And also now technology-specific topics have been already mentioned. AI and quantum, digital product passport, I think are also topics which really call for specific webinars, inviting experts, as like some which we already heard today. And I think that's it from my side. Well, I think so. But we will also a little bit kind of harvest experiences from other projects like Edo for Standards, which will be closed in 26, and which maybe give some ideas how to improve our activities here under StandICT 29. Thank you from my side.
Thank
Gabriele.
you, Gabriele.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you, Knut. And yes, and spending a few words on the mentorship program, which has been a pilot that was launched during the previous edition. And last year, especially, we supported many between mentees and mentors to participate within the mentorship program. And in general, the scope is to help new or even less experienced experts that come from SMEs or academia that have not yet engaged or just started to engage in SDOs or specific technical committees. And we wanted to pair them with more experienced mentors or fellowship participants that can support them sharing practical tips, networking, and also having the mentors contributing a bit to pass on their knowledge and onboard them in the technical standardization work so that we can have even more experts both in European and international SDOs. Just a few highlights. We started with, we received last year more than 300 applications between mentees and mentors. We made the selection, and we had several matches and pairings between mentors and mentees that worked together during a brief period of time. Next slide, please. And under this mentorship program, we are trying to support the building ecosystem of ICT standardization. So within StandICT, we also provide additional learning resources and support expert onboarding for both experts that have been selected as fellows, but also those that are starting now, but would like also to explore their participation and potentially become fellow at a later stage. This is also something that we complement with SME leadership and capacity building activities, access to training modules, and together with the mentorship program, also it complements the open calls. So the main benefits for mentees are quite clear. They benefit from tips and advice from more experienced fellows. They are more likely then to succeed also making successful proposals for the open calls, make connection, and also improve their understanding of the ecosystem. While the mentors also, given their consolidated role, they also support the passing on the knowledge to the next generation of experts, make new connection, and also get more visibility and recognition for their expertise and also the service that they have been doing for a long time. In the final slide, we also have the plan for this edition, 2029. So the mentorship program from a pilot will be a more composite and improved structure under this edition of StandICT. We are aiming to have a more stable pool of officially recognized mentors, and we will be closely following the editions of the open call from the second open call onwards to launch the mentorship program iterations under the project. So for each open calls and before the open calls, we will collect, starting from February, mentors and mentees, and we will bring them together to participate in this initiative. This will also be complemented especially by learning materials and support that we have from StandICT and ETSI, and we are also improving our collaboration with national standardization bodies and international FDOs. So especially for mentees, you will be able to know more about how to concretely participate to technical groups and how to access them, especially in terms of membership and all the administrative parts. For this program, we will also very much improve the recognition of participants. So you will have clear benefits in participating in the mentorship program, both for mentors and mentees, and among others, especially visibility and also official recognition by the project and the overall community. This will also be a criteria that it will have significant weight in the open call evaluation. After we have seen effective participation, both for mentees as recipients of the mentorship program and also as mentors that voluntarily, of course, provide their effort to pass on their knowledge. So just for your final information, the mentorship program will be officially launched around February 2026 in coordination with the second open call. And from the second open call, it will become an integral part, complementing the open calls and the other learning activities and onboarding from StandICT. If you have any questions, you can feel free to reach out to me, and you will anyway receive more information early next year.
Thank you very much, Gabriele. Just a few final words from my side on the importance actually of the mentorship, because it's one of the new areas we want to invest on. And we're going to have a separated application form, because actually the mentorship program will be open also to people who do not need financial support for their activity. They just want to be trained somewhat in standardization. So it will be separate also for this reason. But it also will be very important for those who apply for the open calls, because as you will read in the guidelines, we will have as a bonus or one of the evaluation criteria that if you are part of the mentorship program, the new one or the past one for the first open call, you will be getting some extra points, because we really want to push forward the people that are active in this area and that are new also to the standardization domain. So we've come to the end of the webinar. I want to really thank everyone who has participated, both the speakers and the attendees. And honestly, just to conclude this webinar, I think I can just echo the words that some of you before me have already mentioned. Silvana, since the beginning, about the importance of people. Ruth, she mentioned the importance of the network and the connection among industry. And I think we can, testify also with the attendance at this webinar and the hundreds of comments that we have received, exchanges of details and emails, etc., how important really the network and the people behind this initiative are, beyond all the management and the structure that we have improved over the years. So we're very happy to launch and to continue this initiative. And for those of you who are interested, come to the event on the 7th of January. I also want to wish you happy winter holidays that are starting soon this month, and a happy new year for you and for everyone in your life. Thanks a lot, and have a good day.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.